Education. This is the 7th part in a multi-part series called Go to Work and Give the Government Your Children, the Feminist UN Agenda 21 plan to empower women. The Nairobi report that's cited in Agenda 21 recommends examining the textbooks of all schools, public and private, in an effort, quote, to eliminate all discriminatory gender stereotyping in education, end quote. Influencing the minds of children through lessons in public school play a major role in the UN's plan to push their agenda. The United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, UNESCO, is the branch responsible for promoting the educational objectives of the UN. The goal to strengthen the power and improve the capacity of UNESCO is mentioned throughout Agenda 21. In Chapter 24 of Agenda 21, a chapter solely dedicated to the role that women are to play in the 21st century, titled Global Action for Women Towards Sustainable and Equitable Development, it states that the gender-based objectives of UNESCO have already begun to be implemented. Quote, conventions of UNESCO have also been adopted to end gender-based discrimination and ensure women access to land and other resources, education, and safe and equal employment, end quote. Various education-related entities throughout the world have been tasked with implementing the UNESCO objectives in their respective countries. In the United States, the National Education Association, the NEA, which is the largest labor union in the country, is a major group which works with the United Nations and UNESCO, attempting to insert the ideals of Agenda 21 into the school lessons of American children. An admitted goal of Agenda 21, as evidenced by the Nairobi report, is to have traditional gender norms changed, and the NEA is helping to influence changes in school lessons to conform to this objective. One example of the gender-based objectives pushed by the NEA occurred at the 2011 Commission on the Status of Women, CSW. The CSW is a United Nations organization that calls itself the principal global intergovernmental body exclusively dedicated to the promotion of gender equality and the empowerment of women. A woman named Diane Schneider, representing the NEA, gave a presentation at a side event of the 2011 CSW conference where she, quote, emphasized the importance of education as the only way to combat phobias, end quote. This side event was hosted by the International Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, Trans, and Intersex Association, ILGA. Interestingly, the ILGA offers audio of all the presentations given that day at their website, except the one given by Diane Schneider of the NEA. This may be due to the controversy surrounding Schneider's recommendations offered at this presentation. Luckily, the audio of Schneider's presentation was saved and posted to YouTube before the ILGA took it down. In the presentation, Schneider, who is homosexual herself, criticizes previous forms of sex education and believes future sex education should include terms such as orgasm, oral sex, and masturbation.
How can we teach sex education without including terms such as orgasm, oral sex, and masturbation?
Here are some more excerpts from the presentation which encourage homosexuality and attack the family structure.
The question comes to mind how we as educators can serve to eradicate homo and transphobia through education. This is an awesome task. The key to the answer lies in the realization that both gender identity expression as well as sexual orientation is a spectrum and not a box that houses our being. We must teach our children at a very young age that being male, female, or intersexed comes with the presence of genitalia and no further expectations. That one needs to grow up and be their authentic self, free of society's gender expectations. That one needs to grow up and be their authentic self, free of society's, gender expectations, sorry. The same could be true of our sexual orientation. Homophobia exists when those stuck in the binary box of strictly hetero find themselves slipping out of that role that religion and family promote. When we as a society encourage a sense that it is normal to be attracted to a variety of people and situations, will we then begin to conquer homophobia? Once again, to be true and authentic about romantic relations without fear or sin of wrongdoing could mark the beginning of the end of homophobia. As a co-chair of GLSEN, the Gay, Lesbian, Straight Education Network, It is important to note that there are support groups in schools called gay-straight alliances, which serve to keep the education concerning sexual orientation and gender identity expression alive. Being an openly gay teacher in my school for me was safe and created an even safer environment for my students. The question that needs to be addressed through education is how to combat heterosexism and gender conformity in our societies. Once we put all our concerted efforts into more comprehensive education and make topics such as isms, gender identity, and sexual orientation a part of every middle school and high school student's agenda, will we then begin to see a shift from misunderstanding to a peaceful understanding and acceptance of differences.
Another presenter at the same conference, Thomas Lambert, a Belgian representative to the United Nations, discussed initiatives taken and supported to combat homophobia and transphobia in schools, including the distribution of an educational packet to pupils as young as kindergarten titled Martin Has Two Mamas, which helps explain same-sex couples to children. Lambert described another initiative being implemented in Belgium called Open Book, which is a checklist provided to school textbook editors to make sure their texts conform to the agenda. The Population Council, an organization that receives financial and collegial support from the United Nations, also hosted a side event at the CSW conference, and teaming up with the International Planned Parenthood Federation, introduced their new strategy titled It's All One Curriculum, Guidelines and Activities for a Unified Approach to Sexuality, Gender, HIV, and Human Rights Education. The stated goal of this strategy, which lists UNESCO as a contributing partner, is to, quote, develop the capacity of young people to enjoy and advocate for their rights to dignity, equality, and responsible, satisfying, and healthy sexual lives, end quote. This curriculum promotes homosexuality and abortion, encourages sex between youths, and even suggests giving lessons on female clitoris stimulation to young men. Interesting to note, United States President Barack Obama, while speaking at a Planned Parenthood-associated conference, stated his belief that teaching sexual education to kindergartners is the right thing to do.
Sex education in the schools. Now, keep in mind that we've been in this fight. You know, Pam and I, back in Illinois, when I was the chairman of the Health Care Committee, helped to push through legislation, and I remember Alan Keyes. I ran against Alan Keyes. I don't know if you guys remember Alan Keyes. But I remember him using this in his campaign against me, saying Barack Obama supports teaching sex education to kindergartners. And, you know, which I didn't know what to tell him. But it's the right thing to do.
In the next section, we'll discuss how the idea of world government has been pushed through education. Thank you for listening. Subscribe to the channel and watch the related videos.